So I picked up Zenith VR recently, and it's pretty cool. It's one of the first ever large-scale virtual reality MMOs. I went in not really expecting much else than a fun experience and something to swing swords at in VR for a bit. And I mean, yeah, the gameplay is fine. Great even. There's decent class diversity with 2 main classes and those having 3 subclasses each, which focus on DPS, tanking, or healing. And you get quite a few abilities early on, so you have a pretty diverse moveset. And after you hit someone with your swords, they take a short bit of time to recharge and deal full damage, so you don't just flail your arms around, you're actually making dedicated strikes. And the game being in VR means you actually have to aim your ranged attacks for maximum effect. Also, traversal freaking rocks. Gliding and climbing add this huge level of vertical exploration to every level, and it means that I'm always looking up and around the environments I'm in to see if there's any loot or items hidden above. The game's art direction is great too. It's stylized with bright colors, which makes the enemies and items recognizable, and kinda gives me Spiral Knights vibes, to be honest. Spiral Knights. What an interesting game that I should make a video about in the future, methinks. But enough about the gameplay. I want to talk about something that's drawing me into Zenith more than anything else. Something I didn't really expect. The social aspect. A common sentiment I always see around MMOs nowadays is people wanting to recapture the good old days, you know? Childhood memories of playing the game when it seemed so much more alive than it does in the present day, years and countless updates later. But here's the thing. I think in most cases, it wasn't the game that got less fun. I can't speak for you World of Warcraft players, so I don't know, maybe it did. But I think a factor was that people became less social. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid playing Wizard 101 on my mom's computer, my first thoughts when I ran into a boss that I couldn't beat wasn't to skim the wiki for the fight and optimize my deck for a turn 2 balanced Stormblade Stormzilla combo. No, it was to move my ass to the commons and open up the game's weird, kid-friendly piecemeal, pick out different words to try and convey the meaning of your sentence to ask people, how the heck do I beat Grub from Sunken City? And you know what? People responded, and people would offer to help. People would offer to go into a 2-hour dungeon with me and help me beat a boss just because I asked. It was this era, right, of children on the playground talking about what they found out about the game or what their friends told them and what they knew about it and offering help to those who needed it. And nowadays, that's kind of gone. Nowadays, the culture around MMOs focuses on knowing everything, knowing how to min-max, and fully understanding how your game plays. And it sucks the fun that would come from interacting with other players and learning mechanics together right out of the game. I mean, sure, you might post LFG Fire Mage to take on Big Donk's DMV dungeon, and you might get to do some banter with one of your group mates who's particularly talkative before the sequence ends, you disband and the two of you never see each other again. But if you're not deliberately seeking out social experiences or role-playing events in most mainstream MMOs, that's all you're gonna get. So why is Zenith any different? I mean, the game's got a wiki. It's also a modern game with modern conveniences, so information's not at all in high demand. So what's the factor? I think that it's simply because the game's in VR. Okay, now hold on. Let me explain. First off, have you ever tried typing in VR? It sucks. You've got 2 little pointers that you're pulling with triggers, and it feels like you're back in kindergarten learning to type on a keyboard, just pecking out the keys one at a time in the computer lab. It takes years to type out anything of substance. But voice chat is right there. Look, you just press one button and boom, mute and unmute toggle right there in front of you. So instead of stressing about having to type something in, you can just lean over to the dude standing next to you at the quest NPC and go, hey man, you wanna do this group content together? And you know what? Literally everyone I've approached like this has said yes. It's almost like everyone is primed to have a conversation and assist others when prompted to. Hell, having voice chat as standard makes it so you can communicate more clearly and efficiently than even with a regular physical keyboard. Speaking from experience, I think that despite the stigma of MMO players being antisocial, they do seek out, or at least desire, a level of social interaction in their MMOs. I mean, why else play a game that makes you interact and compare yourself to other players constantly? Also, speaking from experience, I know that text boxes aren't exactly the most engaging thing in the world, and can make it particularly unappealing to reach out and interact with others in a game. But in Zenith, that barrier is almost completely gone, and instead of looking at the world through a screen, you're in the middle of it, looking at players quote-unquote eye to eye, which makes the communication take less commitment and feel much more natural. I've had tons of people just come up to me and ask if I wanted to do some quests or content with them, not because I was particularly powerful or anything, just because I was a person in the right place at the right time. I had someone come up to me while I was trying to bake some cookies, right, and let me know that while cookies were okay, I could forage in trees for oranges and craft those into better foodstuffs. Or I could go back into the main city once I was of a high enough level, and I could ask the cooking NPC to teach me more recipes using more stuff that I could find later in the game in the world. And I was then able to take that information and pass it on to new players who were entering the zone, walking by my crafting station. Now, the reason I've had this many positive interactions with others and this exchanging of information is probably because at the time of writing this, Zenith is new, like really new, and the starting zones are absolutely swarming with newbies, and everyone is keen on asking questions. And I mean, kind of already as I'm venturing further out into the world, there are less and less hordes of people, but that definitely doesn't mean you're missing out on social experiences, but it is kind of a sign of what could happen if, the game's player count starts to drop and dwindle as time goes on. While I can't guarantee that my experience will be the same for anyone who picks up this game later, I can definitely say though that right now, this game is the massively multiplayer social experience that I did not know I wanted, and I think that if anything I've said in this video particularly reached you, and you have the hardware to play it, you should definitely give Zenith VR: The Last City a shot. God, I just got a flash of inspiration and wrote this script at midnight. I have a chemistry exam tomorrow. I need to go to bed, man. Oh, man.